Michelin have held their Challenge Bibendum 3 times in Europe and twice in America. It's an acknowledgement of China's growing contribution to the world economy and its increasing levels of pollution that the tyre company chose to hold its Clean Car Rally in Shanghai on the city's new Formula One racetrack. Each manufacturer brought along its latest clean machine. There were hybrid vehicles which use a conventional engine and an electric motor, hydrogen fuel cell vehicles that don't use any petrol at all, even cars that run on plant extracts. Some are concept vehicles, while others are ready for the road. GM brought along its Hi-Wire concept car, a hydrogen fuel cell powered vehicle that manufacturers say could become a reality by the end of the decade. In fact, judging by the majority of vehicles on show, hydrogen is definitely the car industry's choice as the fuel of the future. One big advantage: no exhaust fumes, just water. It's important to raise people's awareness of environmental protection and to control the fume levels. China has 3 million cars on the road, a figure that grows every day. And these manufacturers are hoping that in a few years, a good number of them will be green. It's summer, and while some can spend the hot months relaxing, for others, the daily grind of work continues. Commuters sit in often stifling conditions as they travel in and out of the office. Even when they arrive at work, rising temperatures and stuffy offices can make for sweltering conditions. Air conditioning is costly, and city workers say it can break down or make the building too cold. But scientists at University College of London may have found a way to revolutionise the way we keep cool indoors during the summer. A team of researchers led by chemistry professor Ivan Parkin have discovered a method of blocking out the sun's heat by using specially modified glass. The glass is coated with a thin film of chemicals, vanadium dioxide and tungsten hexachloride. The coated glass will then reflect the sun's heat or infrared energies when the temperature inside a room reaches a certain level. Tungsten allows the temperature at which vanadium repels heat to be manipulated. Ivan Parkin says the glass could be ready on the market in as little as 3 years and could reduce the cost of air conditioning by up to 50%. But would companies use the new technology? Glass in these buildings would have to be replaced with this new modified version. But there are a few problems left to iron out. The coating currently leaves a yellow tinge that can make the glass look dirty. And manufacturing the smart glass on a large scale could be tricky. But for these workers, the new technology would be a welcome relief from these long, hot summers. Surrounded by lush vegetation, the Cuellar family has set up El Salvador's first private biotechnological lab. In a country with few resources, scientific innovation is difficult. But after winning $12,500 in a national competition, they have already managed to get the laboratory set up in the house where they were born and raised. This is the house where 9 brothers and sisters were born, and now it's home to the biolab. At the moment, they're concentrating on cultivating plants. The aim is to grow desirable species and clone them. Cloning plants means that desirable characteristics such as disease resistance, color or taste can be reliably retained in future generations. and the fruits of their labour are already crowding into their back garden. Cloning, however, is a slow, delicate process. A sample of the plant is placed in a glass container and stored in a light and temperature-controlled room. Next, plant material is selected and cut up into tiny sections in a sterile environment. Then, when the plant is firmly established, samples are extracted so that they can be multiplied. Once the leaf fragment has developed, it is transferred to a deeper culture medium so that its roots can develop further. The young clones are then transferred into a light-growing medium to further strengthen root growth. But this is only the beginning. For these brothers, biotechnology holds a wealth of promises for the future. But the family's future plans to expand into animal biotechnology could prove difficult. Without government support, the family is unlikely to have the huge amounts of money a venture like this might require. Severe floods have inundated huge swathes of the British countryside, creating havoc in their wake. Scientists attribute the freak weather conditions to global warming, and Trevor Tranton at the University of Southampton is one of Britain's leading experts on the phenomenon. He thinks there's no doubt that global warming is happening. For the developed countries, there are solutions, even if they are costly. For developing nations, without the finances, the picture looks increasingly bleak. In Britain, if scenes like this are not to be repeated, both individuals and governments need a fundamental change in attitude. Hurricanes can have a devastating effect on people and property when they hit land. When Hurricane Mitch hit Nicaragua, it was disastrous for the people. Financial aid had to fund new homes and roads, improved healthcare facilities, and farming resources. The hurricane tore through Nicaragua, Honduras, and Guatemala and killed thousands of people. Water supplies were severed, harvest-ready crops were destroyed, and entire villages were swept away by floodwaters. In Nicaragua, $1.6 million provided by Britain's Department for International Development re-established 450 rural water supplies and around 1,500 household waste systems. In Matagalpa, one farming village lost most of its crops and buildings to the floodwaters. Aid money has supplied the materials to replace original mud huts with houses made of brick and cement. And with the help of skilled labour, the villagers are building their own homes as part of a Food for Work program. The flooding destroyed sorghum and bean crops, which would have fed the community, as well as providing much-needed revenue. A $5 million aid project has supplied seeds and transport for new crops, and farmers expect to be able to reap the harvest in the next season. The international community has pledged some $14 million to the Central American countries hardest hit by Hurricane Mitch, and Britain has taken a lead in efforts to cancel their debt burden by initiating the establishment of a trust fund. Many millions of dollars of aid were required in the region for health and education, road and housing reconstruction. The aim of the aid agencies is to both rebuild what is destroyed and try and put in infrastructure that will survive future hurricanes. Eastern England has been the country's breadbasket for centuries. But this field of wheat in Norfolk is definitely a modern one. In the 1960s, scientists found they could breed much shorter varieties of wheat, which had an impact on the yield. At the John Innes Agricultural Research Centre in Norwich, scientists have identified the gene that controls this dwarfing process. They isolated the gene RHT by comparing tall and dwarf forms of this common weed called Arabidopsis. Having found it in the weed, the scientists isolated the same gene which turns old-fashioned tall wheat plants into modern, high-yielding dwarf ones like this. The gene codes for a protein alters the way the wheat plant responds to a growth hormone. And this discovery could have far-reaching implications for boosting yields of other crops. Tests are already underway at the centre using the gene in rice. They've managed to breed dwarf rice plants. But whether these in turn will produce more rice grains and how they will perform in widely different climates and soil conditions remains to be seen. Genetic modification of plants is controversial. On a farm near Norwich, environmental protesters attacked a field of genetically manipulated maize. They were angry at genetic manipulation of food crops and concerned that the maize could contaminate neighbouring farms. But the dwarfing gene is common to all plants, and scientists say they are simply refining a process of nature. They hope that if the tests go to plan, rice farmers in needy countries will be able to boost their yields and income in the same way that wheat farmers have. A secluded mansion in the leafy Surrey stockbroker belt southwest of London. There's little to disturb the tranquility here, least of all these space-age electric cars. It looks like a child's paradise, but in reality, it's a serious business worth millions of pounds. Frazer-Nash, a long-established British motor company, designed these vehicles to be at the very forefront of modern technology. They have a revolutionary electronic drivetrain which enables currently available battery technology to be used, but with incredible efficiency. The cars can handle the roughest terrain with ease thanks to a mini computer over each wheel. Driving is a breeze using two pedals, one to go and one to stop. It has a top speed of 70 kilometers per hour, and already it's a winner abroad. Frazer-Nash has already exported this people carrier, the Solar Baby, to Asia, where it's proved extremely popular. There's a number of vehicles being developed, like this electrically powered general-purpose motorcycle. And even a go-kart with electrifying performance. It's not all vehicles though. This clock calls the faithful to prayer 5 times a day, anywhere in the world. The workshops where the glass fibre models become reality, and this company has been in the vanguard of British automotive engineering since the 1920s, when Archibald Frazer-Nash was well known for his sports car designs. And there are big expansion plans. On the way is a test track for the vehicles of the new millennium, being laid out here, deep in the Surrey countryside. Messing about in boats, a traditional summer pastime. But these boats are gathering for a reason, a ceremony that is as much a part of the English summer as Henley Regatta, Wimbledon tennis, and the defeat of the national cricket team. Swans are a common sight on the rivers and lakes of England, the quiet upper reaches of the Thames are a favourite breeding ground. Every July, in a tradition that dates from the Middle Ages, 6 boats row for 5 days along a 50-odd mile stretch of the river. Their task? To count the swans and check on their well-being. They're headed by the swan marker of the monarch, who owned all the swans on the river when they were a sought-after culinary delicacy. The first to sight a swan calls all up. That's why this annual census is called swan-upping. July is actually the best time to count the swans as they shed their flying feathers. But it can still be a tricky job for the upper to catch a fully grown adult bird. The young are known as cygnets. They're weighed and measured to estimate their rate of growth. And they're carefully checked for injury. Despite appearances, this is no jolly outing for amateurs. It's a serious academic exercise involving experts from Oxford University. This annual census proved its value when it showed up a sharp dip in the swan population during the 1970s and 1980s. The reason was traced to the type of weights used by anglers fishing from the riverbanks. Lead weights are now banned on the river. Proof that this ancient ritual is helping to protect this stately inhabitant of England's waterways. Traffic lights get heavy use and bulbs need replacing about every 6 months. But these lights in central London will go on working for 10 years. They are among the first in the world to be powered by a long-lasting light bulb containing a light-emanating diode made from a substance called gallium nitride. It takes 2 power stations to run all the traffic lights in Britain. Using more energy-efficient bulbs should greatly reduce this demand, cutting carbon dioxide pollution. The light-emanating diodes that are being developed by scientists hold out the hope of a domestic light bulb that will last 100 times as long as a conventional bulb. Researchers at Professor Humphrey's laboratory at Cambridge are exploring even more exciting possibilities for technology based on the blue laser light derived from gallium nitride. These include more efficient mobile phones and a new generation of compact discs. And in a few years, we may even be able to go to the dentist and instead of having teeth drilled out, have the decay removed accurately and hopefully painlessly using blue laser light. The British government has launched an environmental strategy to give greater protection to land, trees, wildlife and rivers bordering motorways in England. It will be the responsibility of the Highways Agency to implement the landmark environmental techniques and ideas. The environmental strategy, dubbed Towards a Balance with Nature, is the first of a series of government-supported environmental strategy plans. The strategy covers a broad range of projects, all aimed at reducing the adverse impact of motorways and trunk roads on the environment. The strategy covers a wide range of issues, including air pollution, waste management, noise reduction, water pollution, biodiversity, and protection of the geological and historical heritage. The strategy was drawn up in consultation with the National Environment Committee, which brings together organisations like English Nature, the National Trust, RSPB and Friends of the Earth in order to focus on green issues that affect the road network. The agencies will work with road contractors and also consider the cost to the taxpayer. They will also aim to use materials that long-term will help sustain the environment. As cities expand and concrete inevitably replaces grass, many valuable pockets of countryside are being lost, probably forever. Now though, Britain's Countryside Agency, with the help of a £10 million lottery grant, is reintroducing 250 areas of greenery known as Millennium Greens. These new Millennium Greens will vary in size depending on how much space is available, and it will be up to local residents to decide just how they should look, the emphasis being on long grass and wildflowers. For many children living in tower blocks and flats with no gardens, these new greens are also seen as a point of educational focus, a way of teaching future generations how humans and nature can coexist harmoniously. Since this green in North London was created, dozens more birds and insects, especially butterflies, have been seen in the area. Each Millennium Green will also host a sculpture or other work of art with special significance to the area. Here, landscape artists are constructing a boat in memory of local author Jerome K. Jerome, who wrote the book 3 Men in a Boat. To celebrate the initiative, the Royal Mail launched a collection of Millennium Green stamps. "250 communities across Britain created their own Millennium Greens to usher in a greener millennium."